Happy Aloha Friday, everyone, and welcome back to the CO2 Rundown. I'm your host, Chad Owens, and I'm bringing you today's segment from Malibu, California. I got a very special guest joining me today, former NBA All-Star, world champion, Matt Barnes. This dude's a world champion father. He's a world champion leader in his community, and he's got the world's #1 podcast, All the Smoke. I'm excited to have him on, so please stick around. And I want to just say thank you once again for tuning in. Let's dive on in to the CO2 Rundown. Man, appreciate you tuning in to the CO2 Rundown, man. I know you got a busy schedule, grinding out here. Appreciate you taking the time.
No doubt, man. It's nice to hear that you're in Cali enjoying some of this LA weather for a little bit.
Yeah, man. I was taking it in a little while ago. This sunset is unbelievable.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, let's jump on in, brother. First of all, congratulations on an amazing career. World champion. But, you know, in my opinion, bro, you're a world champion, leader, father, entrepreneur, and you've transitioned out of the game, man. Probably one of the best of all athletes. How important is it to you for athletes to have a plan post-career?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very important because, if you're fortunate enough to make it, everyone thinks they can play forever. And, the average career is 3 years, so I beat the odds by playing 15. But I started planning what was next probably about year 9 or year 10. And when I got a chance to finish with the Warriors in 17, when that team won a championship, things kind of started hitting, but it took, 3, 4, 5 years. And I think sometimes where athletes get stuck is they think that the transition is going to be overnight. You're going to be able to snap your fingers. You're done playing, and the next day business is popping, and that's the furthest thing from the truth. So I think that the one thing that I lucked up on was I started planning ahead, and I still was able to play 5 more years. So by the time I was done, a few business opportunities were up and running. So I didn't go into that, damn, what's next phase. I kind of hit the ground running. First and foremost, just to be able to spend more time with my kids was my priority number one. And then, once I was doing that every day consistently, like I said, the business was already rolling. So it was a really smooth transition. But like I said, I think where people mess up is they wait too late. They wait till they're done playing, or they wait, because most people don't get a chance to kind of pick when they end their career. Most people don't retire. Most people are kind of either forced out because no one wants them, or an injury affects them. So I would just kind of say plan ahead, have an understanding. And that's what I love about the younger athletes these days. They're more business savvy and more business minded. So, they have business going while they're still playing, which I think is great.
That's awesome, man. And speaking of young athletes, you talked about it, man, your kids. I see you as a father, man, just leading the way. And you do a great job of that, man. Like,
thank you.
They're some all-stars themselves. How important is sports in general in their lives? I mean, they grew up when they're born watching you and being around it, but to them, what is sports to them?
They love it. And the reason why I love it and encourage is because I think you learn so many life lessons from sports. You learn how to be with the team, you learn how to communicate, you learn how to work with others. There's a lot of life skills I think people learn from sports. And you hit it on the head. They were born in it, so they were born in 2008. So that was year 6 for me. And they really got a chance to grow up in it. And I think what was so special was, the behind the scenes stuff when they got to come in the locker room. And the championship year in 17 with the Warriors, Coach Kerr was so cool that he let them travel with us on the team plane. They were at practice with us. They were in the locker rooms. They were in our breakfast meetings. They were in our lunch meetings. So they really got a firsthand experience of what that NBA life is like. We're in the Western Conference Finals against the Houston Rockets, and Isaiah and Carter having a shootout with Katie and Steph after practice. You know what I mean? So that's stuff that the stuff you can't teach. That's that invaluable stuff. They got a chance. It was Uncle Kobe. Obviously, rest in peace to Kobe. Every time they were around Kobe was sending them some new shoes and hugging them and hanging out with them and having them come back to the locker room. And then being around that Lob City team, with CP and Blake, and now they're still best friends with little Chris Paul's son to this day. So, they really got a chance to just understand it. But I was one of those fathers that never really pushed them to do it. I think because they grew up in it, they had the instincts and they had a high basketball IQ, but they were like every other kid that all they wanted to do was play video games. So I didn't really press them, like they were good, but they got to a point, when I started coaching them about 8 or 9, that like around 9 or 10, they kind of were in the middle of the pack, you know what I mean? And I told them, like, the only way to get better is to work. Just because I'm your dad doesn't make you good. I think me being, experience the stuff you're able to experience is going to give you a high IQ and have an understanding for the game, but there's no shortcutting the process. And the boys were fortunate enough to work out with Kobe on their 10th birthday. And I told Kobe what I told you, was like, they love basketball, but they love video games more. So Kobe was talking to him and, telling them, where are you going to college? And they said UCLA. And he's like, not to play basketball. And they looked at him like, what? He's like, your dad says all you guys like to do is play video games. And they kind of nodded their head. He's like, yeah, you guys can go to school because you're going to be smart, but you're not going to play basketball. And I think that kind of lit a little fuse under him, because us being parents, whenever you hear, an athlete or a superstar tell you something, we could tell them the same thing. But if someone else, if Kobe
Bro,
tells them
trust
or
me.
Steph tells them or KD tells them, it goes a lot further. So I think that kind of let a fuse under them. And then unfortunately, with Kobe's death last year, it was a real wake up call for them. And, they said they wanted to work hard to honor Kobe. You know what I mean? So since then, they've been working out, and I can see it, they can see it, and they can feel, their game is starting to elevate because they're putting the hard work in with their natural talent and their natural IQ.
Wow, man. I mean, and just so you know, man, I'm part of the sports movement in Hawaii. Sports has been canceled in Hawaii and as well as a few other places. And I think even in LA, are you guys traveling
Yes.
outside to play?
So we're going out of state to play everything. So we make normal trips to Arizona, normal trips to Dallas. We were going to Las Vegas. So we've been, obviously when the pandemic first hit, everything was kind of shut down, and then other states stayed fairly loose when it came to kids playing. So we've been logging a lot of miles this last 6 to 8 months, but it's been great for the kids because we're currently the number 3 12-year-old team in the country. So we've definitely been putting in some work, and it's been a blast for the kids.
Wow, that's amazing, man. Sports definitely provides opportunity, but more than that, man, it provides experience,
Right.
and memories, man. It lasts a lifetime. So that's what's up. Shout out to your boys, man. There's some
I
all stars,
appreciate
future
that.
stars for sure. Let's transition
Appreciate
back
that.
to what you've been doing, man. Let's talk about the All the Smoke podcast, which in my opinion is the realest and number one, podcast in the game right now. And how did that even begin? I mean, because
Random. It was random, to be honest with you.
you and Stack.
Yeah, Jack retired, I think, a year or two before I did. I finished in 17, but we were both, respectively doing little guest appearances at ESPN and Fox, and we were just getting a lot of positive feedback from the hosts, and then, on social media. Everyone loved our real, raw, uncut takes, and knowing that we have experience in the game. And one time Fox started putting us together on a show, and just, our chemistry is natural. That's my guy. So we're back and forth acting like there's no cameras on, and everyone kind of just felt that vibe. So we were at my place in the Bay, one day watching some games, and I'm just like, I was like, let's do a podcast. And he's like, what's a podcast? I was like, I don't really know, but, I know we could be ourselves, and we can cuss, and we can kind of talk our, because working for ESPN and Fox, you kind of have to walk that line. So he's like, I'm with it. He's like, make it happen. So I ended up speaking on a DeMarcus Cousins documentary that Showtime did. And somehow one of the producers had heard that I wanted to do a podcast. So he's like, hey, you need to talk to Showtime. I was like, Showtime does podcasts? I was like, he's like, no, not right now, but they're starting a whole Showtime basketball side. And I think you guys would be great to kind of, kick it off. I'm just like, all right, cool. So he got me in contact with someone. And from there, we just started rolling. They took a chance on us, no sizzle, no nothing. They just believed in, my vision, which was humanizing people, and not so much an interview format, but more of a kickback, sit down and relax and have a good conversation format. And we struck gold. And honestly, between me and you tonight, in about an hour, they're about to announce that we won the iHeart Podcast of the Year, Sports Podcast of the Year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that,
Congrats on
man.
that.
So I mean, thank you. There's some heavy hitters in that space, Bill Simmons and everything they're doing over at what is the other big play? Anyway, we knocked over a lot of big shots and big people in this space, and we've barely been in it for a year. So it's been a blessing, but it's fun because it's not really a job. It's kicking back, and it's giving our fan base an opportunity to get know their favorite athlete, favorite celebrity a little better. And like I said, I can never imagine that a year into it, we'd win the number one sports podcast, but we're going to keep pushing and trying to change the game and change the narrative.
Man, that's what's up, man. Shout out to All the Smoke podcast.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Man, appreciate you allowing us to come and sit on set in New York
Yeah.
last year. That was amazing. That was super dope.
Yeah, no doubt. I hope you glad you guys are fun. And then, obviously thank you for introducing me to, the team, Nathan and the guys, because we've been able to do a lot of stuff since that. And it all started with you, man. So I appreciate, you taking the time and you guys coming to hang out in New York.
Yeah, man. I know there's a lot of things, exciting things coming down the pipeline here shortly, man. I can't wait for that. So we'll talk about that another time. Last thing here, bro. I know you were a big time, highly recruited football player, which I think a lot of people probably know more now than before. Man, this week, AFC, NFC championship games, who's your picks?
Man, if Mahomes has got to be able to play. If Mahomes doesn't play, I think Josh Allen and those boys will get it. But if Mahomes plays, I got Kansas City. And then in the NFC, man, it's hard to bet against Brady, but I just feel like Aaron Rodgers is hitting on all cylinders right now. So I got Green Bay versus Kansas City in the Super Bowl. And that Super Bowl is going to be a shootout, man. So I'm excited.
It is going to be a shootout, brother. Well, look, man, I appreciate you so much, Matt, for taking the time to jumping on with me. This is the CO2 Rundown. And look, man, go back, enjoy your kids, man. I appreciate you. And we'll catch up soon.
No doubt, bro. Appreciate you having me. We'll talk soon.
All right, man. Aloha.
Man, wow. Brother Matt, thank you so much for joining us. And sharing all of your experiences, your knowledge. Yeah, man, sports are very important. It's important in all of our lives. It played a huge role in my life, played a huge role in your lives, and it's playing a huge role in our kids' lives. And in sports, we know that, it's gonna come to an end, so it's important. Just like you said, man, just like Matt said, guys, it's important to have a plan. You gotta prepare for that next chapter when our sports careers is over. So Matt's definitely leading the charge when it comes to transitioning out of sport. He's leading the charge in his community, and he's definitely leading the charge when it comes to his podcast. So make sure you guys check him out. All the Smoke, #1 podcast in the world. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Chad Owens. Happy Aloha Friday once again. I'll see you guys on Monday. Aloha.